Morning, this is Brian. Today is Wednesday, August 14th, 2024, and I'm here at the El Prado campground in the Laguna Mountain Recreation Area of Cleveland National Forest in south central San Diego County. It's time for a Spotlight on Plants video. Today I want to focus on this nice, beautiful plant right here, and this is Cleveland Horkelia. Horkelia clevelandii, variety clevelandii. This is a small perennial herbaceous plant in the rose family, the Rosaceae. And it's not a very common sight here in Southern California. I believe it's a relatively local area or regional endemic. So this plant probably does not have a very wide distribution. I've only seen it on 2 occasions, today and another time I was here in the Laguna Mountains. So this is not a common plant, and it's a plant that we want to make sure we conserve. So while I'm filming this video, I'm going to make sure that I am very careful and give this plant a little bit of a birth so I don't disturb it. So Cleveland Horkelia. Horkelia is a genus of plants in the rose family that are pretty similar to cinquefoils and potentillas. They're fairly closely related to those plants, which are also generally herbaceous perennials. And I believe they're in the same group in the rose family. But Cleveland Horkelia is one of our special, not so common species that we have here. And what we have is generally a matted mass of foliage with some stems sticking above where the flowers and seeds are produced. So it's going to be very hard to get some of the micro details of this plant, so bear with me because the features of this plant are pretty small. But I want to start off by looking at the leaf structures of this plant. So the leaves are pinnately compound. In other words, they're relatively feather-shaped. Pinna, pinnately, feather in Latin. So what I have in my hand here is most of a leaf. This that I'm touching with my middle finger, this is a leaf, the leaf of the plant. So you can see it's got the central rachis, or the leaflet stem, and then you get the leaflets, which are kind of wedge-shaped and kind of lobed or toothed along the edges, as you can see here. And that's a pretty common feature of potentilla, dremocalis, and Horkelia. And as you can see, some of the stems, the stems are a little bit on the reddish side. And again, as you can see, where the flowers and seeds are housed are erect and above the main rosette or main mass of the plant. So what else I want to talk about, after I finish getting some pictures of the foliage of this plant, I want to talk about what the flowers look like and the fruit structures. This is probably a pretty short video, even though this is kind of a special issue for me because this is not a plant I come across very often, and it's relatively uncommon to rare plant here. So let me get a couple pictures, change my batteries out before my batteries die in the middle of a video clip. Alright, so I did mention that the flowers and seeds are generally on these stalks that are erect and above the main mass of the foliage. So let's go take a look at some of these flowers. I'm going to try as hard as I can to get the details on this plant. So bear with me. This might not be the best detail, so just bear with me. But if you look here, there is this small 5-petal white flower. Let me see if I can... the sun's kind of making it hard to see, but right here. Bear with me while I try to focus in on this. But yeah, you can see here, we got right between my fingers is a small 5-petaled white flower. pretty common in Horkelia species that have very small, sparse petals or corolla lobes. As you can see here, the petals are very small, kind of widely spaced apart, and generally 5 petals per flower. Here are a few more right here. Again, the detail's not going to be the best. I do apologize for that. I don't have the most sophisticated equipment in the world, but there was no way I was passing up an opportunity to spotlight this plant upon seeing it again. And seeing it in bloom is definitely special to me. So I'm going to go over to this plant here. I think this one had a few flowers on it too. Let's see. Let me go see if I can migrate to a spot. I'm making sure not to step on the plants too, because I got to go into a little more detail about that as well, as to why you don't want to step on a patch of this plant. So let me go and migrate to another plant with more flowers on it. There we go. Here's another flower right here. This one's kind of lying low. It's not on this big raised inflorescence stalk, but look at that. Very small, humble sized and shaped flower. It's kind of a plant you kind of have to get close to seeing to really appreciate it, but I want to caution against getting too close to where you're actually stepping on the plant. And like I said, once I get through this segment, I will go into more details about that. But then what happens is after these flowers, then they turn into these little cup-shaped receptacles where the little tiny seeds are. Little tiny seeds inside of these little tiny, as you can see, still see the calyx of the flowers kind of hanging around there, or the bottom, which subtend these petals here. I think these are calyces, I believe. And yeah, you get little tiny grainy like seeds inside of them on this Dremel gland of this plant here. Again, I said Dremel. This is a relative of Dremel, but this is Horkelia clevelandii, variety clevelandii. So why do I say let's try to keep a little bit of a birth for this plant? Well, it's because it's a habitat of a very rare endemic subspecies of butterfly, the Laguna mountain skipper butterfly. And that plant, Horkelia clevelandii, variety clevelandii, is the habitat for that butterfly. So that's why I try to tread carefully. And in this area, why I would not really consider doing off-trail hiking is because I would hate to ruin a plant or step on a butterfly and harm it. So, yes, Horkelia clevelandii, variety clevelandii, Cleveland Horkelia. What a beautiful plant. I'm going to go ahead and snatch a couple more pictures, and I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. It's a pretty short video, and we'll talk about a couple last things about this plant before we conclude. So as for the habitat of Horkelia clevelandii, variety clevelandii, it tends to like, as you see here, grassy areas, lots of grasses and forbs, meadows, and sometimes in the shade of woodland and forest, where there tends to be more grass and smaller herbaceous plants. So that's a preferred habitat for the Cleveland Horkelia. And a lot of other Horkelia species and also Dremel species a lot of times tend to like living in meadow-like areas and grassy areas underneath trees and shrubs. So there you have it. The beautiful. You got to get up close to really see the details of this plant, as I demonstrated through filming this video, but it is definitely a special plant that should be treated with the utmost respect, not trampled on, because not only is it not a common plant, but what it hosts, the Laguna mountain skipper butterfly, is very rare and endangered. So that's another reason why I like to do these videos, is to not only educate what the plants are, what they look like, but also so you can recognize them, so you make sure that if you are treading off trail, just to be careful and then not trample them. Again, because the plants are rare and the animals are rare as well. So that's going to do it for my Spotlight on Plants video on Cleveland Horkelia. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this one entertaining, interesting, and instructional. And I will see you on the next Spotlight video.